Hi, I'm Ranee Zeller. I'm the author of the How-To Kinesiology workshops, and I'm also the author of the books. The books are available as an EPUB, as a paperback. The courses are run online and they're also run face-to-face.
So Ranee, I see a lot of clients with children with learning difficulties. Can you just explain to me a little bit more about how I can use your resources for those clients?
Learning disabilities can be any age, as you know. So you may be working with the children, and then it would be definitely like the classroom problems. So on page 14 we've got a whole list of classroom problems, and then if we turn the page over, we've got issues to do with learning for tests or exams, and then if we turn it over again, we've got problems that can be happening in the classroom. So obviously it doesn't have to be a classroom. I'm making it very generic here, but it can be the office or it can be at home as well. So if you can get as much detail from those lists, and they keep going on, if you can get as much detail from those lists, now you can either do that because you're a professional kinesiologist. You can go through simply and muscle test all of these, or this can be a conversation that you can have with the person or with the parent.
As part of the intake process?
Yes.
The pre-assessment?
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, very, very intense,
Yeah.
intensive.
You've got very detailed lists there, wonderful, very inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. So once you've got the pre-test organised and you know exactly what you're working with, of course, again, you're going to find out what they want as a solution and how will they know when they get there, because that's super important. But I feel for anyone, we can't go further if we go to page 11 and their order of needs aren't being met. So if they're not cared for and got good air and shelter and water, then learning's just not going to happen. And then so the order of needs we're going to go through and check. So again, as a professional kinesiologist, you can muscle test that exactly and find out what's out. And Michelle, you have to correct that before you correct a learning disorder, because it's just one of those stepping stones that you've got to do. And then you've got an order of learning as well, so maybe you can find out where they've actually stopped learning.
Brilliant.
And then correct that. The next page is about their learning challenges. All of these are individual corrections, so I'm going to go on and explain later how to do a correction. But before we get to the problem and start tackling the problem, we need to set up the structure so that the child or the person involved with learning disabilities can start to move. And in part of that, the learning challenges, I've also got reflexes here. So this is really, really important. So is the brain able to connect to the rest of the body? Because if your reflexes aren't going, some of them were developed in utero. And fortunately, as a kinesiologist too, we can still correct that stress. So obviously we're not going to go back in the womb and correct it, but we can correct the stress and how it related to them. So the reflexes are also super, super important. Once you've done all that, and that can take half an hour, but it's really important to get that done properly. But once you've done that, we can now break it down into, is it a whole body? Is it sensory? Is it the brain? Is it the head? Or is it an auditory hearing problem with the person? So I'm always going to be checking, is the brain connecting to the problem? Because if the brain's not connecting to the problem, nothing's going to go beyond that. So the gut and the brain are two very important brains, basically. So once we have all the reflexes and all the pre-assessments corrected, I'm going to be muscle testing down the side here to see which one it is. So for example, if I've got hearing, there's a hearing problem, we can quickly flip over because the tab's there to click over. Now within the hearing, I've got the explanation, then I've got the anatomy of the ear. All of these can be very, very specific corrections. You don't have to do one correction. It can be a whole lot of different corrections. Then I've got an explanation of all the parts to the ear, and I've got common conditions affecting the hearing. Again, super comprehensive, so we can nail down very quickly what's going on. And then at the end, we've got some homework for them. So we've got backup for the mum or the child or the adult that can do homework. And again, as a kinesiologist, this is where we're in a perfect position to muscle test to see which is the exact lot of homework we can do. We can even muscle test how many times they need to do it, for how long, for how many days. So it's super comprehensive. So once we have all of this information to do with hearing, we might have muscle tested up here that it's a head trauma. So you can see, Michelle, that that's going to go in a completely different direction, isn't it? So you're going to be able to apply all your other modalities that you've got, so all your spinal reflexes. And what else have you done?
Neuroorganizational technique, hypertonics.
Okay.
Hypertonics has a learning component to it.
Okay. So add all of that in. Like, that's the beauty of these books. These books are a beautiful scan list that will take you to other places. So that's where you jump in and do your other modalities that you've done, because these books aren't meant to change what you've learnt, they're meant to add to what you've learnt. After doing the head trauma, we can find out if there's an emotion attached to it, which is back in your book 1. We can find out if it's affected them mentally, book 1. We can find out if it's affected his nutrition or his taste or his that type of thing. Book 1, but more comprehensively in book 5. There is so many different ways within each of them, and I'd really like to show you how to put all that together. Is that?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah?
I'm thrilled. I love how easy it is, how all these tabs are so self-explanatory, and it just really flows.
Great.
I've got some clients that have issues with their jaw, so they're grinding their teeth or maybe clicking. Do you have any resources on that?
Absolutely. The jaw is one of the primary issues that we need to look at, because under stress, people get tense, lock their jaw, don't want to say what they need to say, maybe, that it ricochets all the way down to their body. It locks in up to 90% of the other muscles in the body. So even if someone has a sore back, one of the very first places I'm going to go to is the jaw, because I know that the neck, the trapeze muscles, connect into the back muscles, which connect into the rest of the body and how they stand and their posture. So some of the things that I will be doing, and they're in one of these books as well, is getting the client to open their jaw left, jaw right, jaw clenched, jaw hold it into the back of their jaw. Head movement, eye rotation, all of those sort of things connect into the jaw. So there is a whole lot of things that we can do. So that would be my first thing. It's like finding out inside that structure where their jaw is holding the tension. Then I'm going to go and look at whether they're holding it because of mental problems, mental stresses, probably not problems, mental stresses, emotional, whether they've got a sabotage or a payoff. Because years ago I had this client once who had a really tight jaw, it was ricocheting down to their arm, and she was a nurse. And so I did all this work on her, and then I asked her if she needed the pain, and she goes, yeah, because I don't have to actually make all the beds out in the hospital. I'm like, keep it. It's working for you. So if we can find out why they're holding on to it, that's more than half the problem solved.